was 1968. The country was in turmoil, and he would be dead in less than 2 months. He said, quote, "Negroes have heavy tasks today. We were partially liberated and then re-enslaved." This is King now. "We have to fight again on old battlefields." And although black people have been fighting for freedom for more than 100 years, and even if the date of full emancipation is uncertain, King said, what is explicitly certain is that the struggle for it will endure, end quote. This is a picture of Dr. King that doesn't come into view on this day. We like to think of him on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, hands outstretched, saying, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. The smiling preacher who called us to our better angels. But that is a fairy tale that secures our innocence and ensures a quiet sleep. It keeps us from looking at the full scope of his life and why during those last days he struggled so mightily to see through the darkness that was this country. I'm coming home. About a month after his speech at Carnegie Hall, and about 10 days before he was killed, Dr. King appeared at the 68th Annual Convention of the Rabbinical Assembly. One of my heroes, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, introduced him as he prepared to engage in a rather interesting Q&A session. But there's a moment in the exchange that stands out to me, and remember, this is just 10 days before he's assassinated. A question was asked, quote, "How can all of us who are concerned participate with you in seeking this goal of social justice?" It's a question that white folks ask all the time. And before he turned to the importance of the Poor People's Campaign, Dr. King's response was fascinating. Listen, let me say that we have failed to say something to America enough. However difficult it is to hear, however shocking it is to hear, we got to face the fact that America is a racist country. We've got to face the fact that racism still occupies the throne of this nation. I don't think we will ultimately solve the problem of racial justice until this is recognized, until this is worked on, end quote. Here, King was clear. Unless we are honest with ourselves, tell the truth about who we are and what we have done, we will never solve the problem of racial injustice in this country. We don't want to teach the facts of history in our classroom. We don't want to legislate policies to redress or address long-standing inequalities. Instead, we prefer our illusion straight, no chaser. We have to confront the ugliness of who we are. Dr. King was right, and the evidence is clear. We are a racist country, and to admit such a thing is not to condemn ourselves to eternal damnation. It is no different than admitting that we are all sinners. To admit such a thing sets the stage for the possibility for a new imagining, a new nation, a new way of being in the world, shorn of this insidious idea that some people, because of the color of their skin, are better than others. On April 3rd, on the eve of his assassination, as he was organizing with garbage workers, and he didn't want to get out of bed because he knew something was in his gut that told him his days were numbered. He gave voice to words that mean so much to me on this day of celebration. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now. Because I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land, and I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. All too often on this day, we rush to celebrate the life of Dr. King, and like so many Christians, we run past the darkness of Saturday in order to bask in the light of Resurrection Sunday. We are quick to talk about the promised land, but we forget what he said. What did he say? He said, we've got some difficult days ahead. Since his death in 1968, America has repeatedly turned its back on what Dr. King died for. And today we find ourselves wondering if we will survive this moment of storm and stress. Today we must face the fact that the sense of connection, of mutuality, so necessary for democratic life, has been ripped to shreds. Today we must face the fact that the racist genie is out of the bottle and we cannot put it back in, but we must banish it from view altogether. We have to decide finally to imagine America as a truly multiracial democracy. Because if we don't, we will lose this fragile experiment in democracy. We need to embrace the fullness of Dr. King's life as we confront this storm. We need to confront the man in the grave for who he was, not for who we imagine him to be.